The author of this story is unknown. Everything started out normal. It was just a simple nightmare. Right. But the more I thought about it, the more unlikely that sounded. No nightmare could be that detailed, that gruesome. At first I thought I was alone in that dream. But I couldn't have been more wrong. There was something there, in the far corner of the room. It sat there, watching, waiting, taunting me, almost drawing me towards it. It looked like a statue, made of dark stone, with glittering eyes made of rubies. Its hands were crossed over its heart, as if holding a small object close. Silently, I walked towards the object, somehow knowing I would regret the decision. It was only a few feet away now. Something was off about the statue. It had a deathly cold air around it, almost like an invisible wall that you had to push through to get past. Once I was only a foot away, I immediately knew what was off about it. This wasn't a statue. No, far from it, to be exact. It was some sort of phantom, reaper, whatever way you want to describe it. It just stood there, unwavering, unblinking. I desperately wanted to move away, to turn and run as far as possible, though something rooted me to that exact spot. Was it fear? Fascination? Maybe a little bit of both. Whatever it was, I despised the feeling for keeping me in such a dangerous spot. It all happened so fast. First, I was standing there, watching the creature. Then, it lunged at me, wrapping its robed arms around me, the cold air chilling me to the bone. I blinked, a new scene unraveling in front of me. I couldn't exactly describe where I was, because there was nothing around me except snow. The white fluff was blowing in the wind, like ice-cold razors cutting through my flesh. All sense of direction was lost, replaced by desperation to get out of the freezing temperatures. Sprinting off into what I thought was north, I stumbled a few times, quickly getting up in fear that something was chasing me. I must have been running for hours, though I couldn't tell. Off in the distance, I thought I saw what looked like a cave. It was still a good 200 yards away, but surprisingly clear through the blizzard. Seeing it as my only option, I ran towards the entrance, finally stumbling into blackness. Upon reaching the bottom, I found myself in a jungle, heat beating down on me, the sweat refusing to evaporate into the already humid air. Getting up, I brushed the dirt off my pants, carefully slinking through the trees and undergrowth, not wanting to attract any unwanted guests. There was a sound in the distance, almost sounded like an elderly man's voice. Ignoring it first, I continued to walk, the man's voice getting louder with each step until I reached a small clearing. In the center, an old man sat, his knees pulled to his chest. The man's back was towards me, but as I walked around him, I was surprised, no, terrified when I saw what he looked like. Pale, emotionless eyes sunken into his skull, thin lips muttering something I couldn't hear, skin wrinkled and burnt from sitting in the blistering hot sun. The man looked up at me, recognition flashing in his gaze. "I saw you in my dream. Can you save us?" he asked, still rocking back and forth. The words shocked me, and as I backed away, he repeated himself. Over and over he spoke the words, each time his eyes growing wider and wider, his voice racing to a shout. Turning, I sprinted off in the direction away from the clearing, though the words still followed me the whole way. Another few hours passed. I was in a field. The change of scenery confused me, and I knew that it had something to do with the Reaper that attacked me. Off on the horizon, there was a mountain. Its peak reached high above the clouds. Walking towards it, I tripped over something, falling onto my face. Turning, I saw what looked to be a young girl, about 13 years old, laying in the grass, her hands folded over her chest.
"Don't believe what they said. You were dreaming. You have to wake up."
She said, returning to her pensive state. Backing away, I continued my trek towards the mountain, though I didn't seem to be getting any closer. Frustrated, I kicked a stone, falling back onto the ground. There was a cold wind, red eyes flashing above me, before the world went black. A soft dripping sounded in the distance, soft whispers, followed by a beep, beep, beep. I didn't open my eyes in fear of seeing the Reaper. Continuing to listen to what was going on, there was a louder voice off in the distance, and I sat up, my eyes opening to take in a white hospital room, flowers and cards sitting on the table next to me. There were doctors out in the hallway, whispering softly. One must have seen me, because they all rushed into the room, huddling around my bed. "What did you see? What did you dream? Was it there?" they asked, all the questions making my head start to ache. Someone from the back of the crowd hushed everyone, pushing his way to the front. He was tall, and though he only looked to be about 22, he had dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. "Let the poor girl wake up a little first," he said, setting his clipboard down on the edge of my bed. "Here, I'll explain," he said. "Police found you in the woods, about a mile away from your house. There were several puncture wounds all over your body, and you were shivering, as if you were in the snow without a coat. A few of us checked you out, though we were unable to identify the cause of said wounds. You've been in a coma for 2 years, the doctor explained, his eyes dark in sadness. During the coma, we have written down several things you have said in your sleep, most of them inexplicable, he said, looking down at the clipboard. You're stable now. You're free to go home any time you wish, the doctor said, grabbing his clipboard and heading out of the room. A nurse handed me my clothes, the rest of them leaving the room to let me get changed. After doing so, I walked to the lobby and checked out. That same night, I crawled into my bed, pulling the blankets up to my chin and looking out the window. The branches rattled against the window in the wind, making me jump every time they brushed against the glass. I couldn't seem to shake the memory of the Reaper, especially the red eyes. Something about them seemed so foreign, yet so familiar. Shaking my head, I turned over so my back was facing the window, deciding to think about it in the morning. Closing my eyes, I heard a soft whisper.